I woke up last night, drenched in sweat, staring at the ceiling. But it wasn't my bedroom. And when I turned to look in the mirror across the room, I saw someone else's face staring back at me. My own eyes, my own mouth, but not mine. You ever had one of those dreams where you're watching yourself from outside your body? Like you're floating above the scene, observing everything as if you're a stranger in your own life. That's what this felt like. Except, there was no distance between me and the reflection. No safety net of detachment. It was just me, staring into the eyes of someone who looked exactly like me, but wasn't. It started 3 weeks ago. I've been having trouble sleeping. Nightmares mostly, though they weren't vivid enough for me to remember them. Just flashes of movement, shadows shifting too quickly for my brain to process. Then came that dream, the one that changed everything. In the dream, I walked through an endless hallway lined with mirrors. Each pane reflected a different version of me. Some older, some younger, some distorted in ways that made my stomach churn. But one mirror stood out. Its surface rippled like water, and when I leaned closer, I saw her. Or him. I couldn't tell anymore. All I knew was that their expression didn't match mine. Their lips curled into a smirk while mine stayed frozen in terror. And then they spoke. "Why are you running?" I jolted awake, heart pounding, convinced I was still dreaming. But something about the voice lingered, a faint echo bouncing around the edges of my mind. I shook it off, chalked it up to stress, and went back to sleep. Big mistake. The next morning, things got weird. I caught glimpses of myself throughout the day, in store windows, on security cameras, even in photos taken by friends. And each time, something fell off. My posture seemed slightly wrong, my smile a fraction too wide. At first, I thought it was paranoia, but the feeling grew stronger every time I saw my reflection. By the end of the week, I avoided mirrors altogether. Then came the voicemail. It was late, maybe midnight, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Caller ID said unknown. Against my better judgment, I played the message. Static crackled before a low, distorted voice whispered, "You'll see me again tonight." I froze. That same tone, the one from the dream. Shaking, I deleted the voicemail and tried to convince myself it was some kind of prank. But deep down, I knew better. Because later that night, I dreamed again. This time, the mirror hallway was shorter, narrower. There were fewer reflections, but the figure in the rippling glass was clearer now. They reached out, their hand pressing against the other side of the mirror. And then I woke up to find cold fingers brushing against my cheek. For the next few days, I lived in a haze of fear and denial. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of light, felt like a warning. I started researching dreams, reflections, anything that might explain what was happening to me. That's when I stumbled across an old forum post buried deep in the internet. Someone had described almost the exact same experience, a series of increasingly unsettling dreams, followed by physical encounters with their reflection. Most chillingly, the original poster claimed they eventually stopped seeing themselves entirely. Instead, they only saw the other person. They signed off with a single line. If you can hear them calling your name, it's already too late. I told myself it was nonsense. Urban legends dressed up as personal anecdotes. But then, 2 nights ago, I heard it. A whisper, barely audible, coming from somewhere inside my apartment. Emily. That's my name. But it wasn't my voice. Now here's the thing. You probably think this is just another ghost story. A creepy tale designed to make you jump at shadows. But let me ask you something. Have you ever seen your own face in a dream? Really seen it? Not the vague outline of features you assume belong to you, but the sharp, undeniable reality of your reflection staring back. If you have, did it feel familiar? Or did it feel like looking at a stranger wearing your skin? Because that's the question that haunts me now. What if the person I've spent my entire life believing is me isn't really me at all? What if, somewhere along the way, I became someone else's shadow? And what happens when the real owner of that face decides to take it back? I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, I felt them there, waiting. Waiting for what? I wasn't sure. But the whisper of my name lingered in the air like smoke, refusing to dissipate. It wasn't just a sound, it was a presence. Something alive and aware. By morning, I was exhausted but too terrified to rest. Instead, I began cataloging everything strange that had happened since the dream started. I scribbled notes on scraps of paper, trying to make sense of the chaos. Mirror hallway dream, recurring. Reflections off in photos/videos. Voicemail, unknown caller, distorted voice saying, "You'll see me again tonight." Physical touch during dream, cold fingers. Whispered name, not my voice. But one detail stood out more than any other, the smirk. In every encounter with this thing, its expression twisted into something sinister, something smug, like it knew something I didn't. And that's when it hit me. What if this isn't about me seeing it? What if it's about it wanting me to see? That thought sent me spiraling. If this entity, or whatever it was, wanted me to notice it, then maybe avoiding mirrors wasn't helping. Maybe it was making things worse. So I did the only thing I could think of. I confronted it. I dragged an old hand mirror from the back of my closet, the kind with tarnished silver edges and a crack running down one side. For a moment, I hesitated, staring at the blank surface. Then I turned it toward my face. At first, nothing seemed unusual, just my reflection staring back, pale and tired. But as I held the mirror steady, something shifted. My eyes darted left, then right, but my reflection stayed perfectly still. Its head tilted slightly, almost imperceptibly, as though sizing me up. And then it smiled. Not a grin or even a smirk this time. A slow, deliberate smile that stretched across its face until it looked unnatural, stretched beyond human capability. I dropped the mirror, shattering it into pieces, and stumbled backward, gasping for breath. When I finally calmed down enough to clean up the mess, I noticed something odd. Among the shards of glass lay a single fragment, unbroken despite the fall. Picking it up, I saw that it reflected not me, but the figure from my dreams, the same cold, calculating smile, the same piercing gaze. This wasn't just a trick of the light. This was real. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with finding answers. I scoured books, websites, anything that might explain why someone would see their doppelganger in their own reflection. Most sources talked about folklore, the idea that seeing your double is a harbinger of death. Others mentioned psychological phenomena like dissociative identity disorder or sleep paralysis. None of it fit. None of it explained the whispers, the touch, the deliberate malice behind those mirrored eyes. Then I found something, a thread buried deep within a Reddit forum dedicated to paranormal experiences. One user described a similar situation, except theirs escalated faster. They claimed their reflection eventually stepped out of the mirror entirely, leaving them trapped inside. Their last post read, "They're stronger now. I can feel them pulling me closer. Don't look directly at them. Whatever you do, don't let them catch your eye." The comments section erupted with theories, but what struck me most was how many people dismissed the story as fake. They said it was impossible, ridiculous, attention-seeking nonsense. Yet here I was, living proof that such things could happen. Or was I? Because that's the thing about reflections. They show us what we want to see, or perhaps what we're afraid to see. And the longer I stared into mine, the less certain I became about which side of the glass was real. One evening, desperate for clarity, I decided to conduct an experiment. Using duct tape and cardboard, I covered every reflective surface in my apartment. Windows, picture frames, even the screen of my phone. When I finished, the room felt suffocatingly dark, like I'd sealed myself inside a tomb. But at least I couldn't see it anymore. At least, that's what I told myself. As I sat in silence, waiting for some sign of movement, a new fear crept in. What if covering the mirrors didn't stop it? What if it didn't need reflections to exist? After all, hadn't it already touched me once? Hadn't it whispered my name? And then, without warning, the lights flickered. Once, twice. On the third flash, I saw it standing in the corner of the room, silhouetted by the dim glow of the street lamp outside. It wasn't a reflection this time. It was flesh and blood, solid and undeniable. Its lips parted, forming words I couldn't hear over the pounding of my heart. "Why do you keep running?" This time, I didn't wake up screaming, because I wasn't asleep. I couldn't move. My body refused to obey the frantic commands my mind was screaming. Run, fight, do something. But all I could do was sit there, frozen in place, as it took a step closer. Its movements were deliberate, unhurried, like it had all the time in the world. And maybe it did. Maybe this moment had been inevitable from the start. The figure looked exactly like me, or at least the version of me that had been haunting my dreams and reflections. Same face, same hair, same clothes. But its presence was wrong, unnatural. There was an emptiness behind its eyes, a void that seemed to swallow the light around it. It tilted its head again, studying me with that same calculating expression. "You don't belong here," it said, its voice low and steady. Not menacing, not angry, just matter of fact, like it was stating the obvious. What are you?" I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. It didn't answer right away. Instead, it walked toward me, each step echoing in the oppressive silence of the room. When it stopped just inches away, I could feel its breath on my skin. Cold, lifeless, yet somehow suffocating. "I'm you," it whispered. "Or rather, I'm what you've forgotten." That's when the memories came flooding back. Not fragments or flashes, but full, vivid scenes playing out in my mind like a movie I hadn't realized I'd been watching. A childhood bedroom, painted pale blue. A mother whose face I couldn't quite picture. A boy, a younger version of myself, laughing as he chased shadows across the floor. And then nothing. Darkness. A gaping hole where years of my life should have been. The creature smiled again, wider this time, revealing teeth that seemed sharper than they should be. "You left me behind," it said. "When you chose to forget, you abandoned me. But I never forgot. I've been waiting for you to come back." Waiting? For how long? Days? Months? Years? Decades? The questions tumbled through my brain, but before I could ask any of them, it reached out and grabbed my wrist. Its grip was icy, unyielding, and when I tried to pull away, I found I couldn't. It wasn't physically stronger than me. It was something else entirely. Something deeper. "You think this is your life?" It hissed, leaning in so close our foreheads almost touched. "This apartment, these routines, these people you call friends, they're mine, not yours. You stole them from me." "No," I whispered, shaking my head furiously. "That's not possible. This is my life." But even as I said the words, doubt crept in. How much of my past was real, and how much had I fabricated to fill the gaps? Who was I really? Was I the person I believed myself to be? Or was I just a shadow, pretending to belong somewhere I didn't? The thing, that other me, released my wrist and stepped back, its smile fading into something almost sad. "You'll see soon enough," it said softly. Then, without another word, it turned and walked toward the far wall of the room. Before my eyes, the surface shimmered, rippling like water, and it stepped through without hesitation. For a moment, I thought it was gone. Gone forever. But then the lights flickered once more, and I saw it again, not in front of me, but behind me, in the reflection of the uncovered window pane across the room. Only now it wasn't alone. Standing beside, it was another figure. Me. Or at least, the version of me I recognized. The one who woke up every morning, brushed their teeth, went to work, lived their life. Except this time, it wasn't moving. It stood perfectly still, staring blankly ahead, while the other me, the true me, watched from the corner, smiling triumphantly. And then it hit me. The truth. The horrifying, undeniable truth. I wasn't the original. I was the copy. Every memory, every experience, every decision I'd ever made, it wasn't mine. It belonged to someone else. Someone who had existed before me, who had created me without realizing it. By forgetting, by leaving pieces of themselves behind, they had given birth to this, to me. And now, the original had returned to reclaim what was theirs. Tears streamed down my face as I stared at the two figures in the glass, the creator and the creation. Which one would fade first? Would I disappear completely, erased from existence like a bad dream? Or would I take their place, trapping them in the endless void of forgotten selves? Before I could decide, the reflection shifted again. The original me stepped forward, reaching out toward the glass, toward me. And as our hands met, mine on this side, theirs on the other, I felt myself being pulled, dragged into the mirror like it was quicksand. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in my apartment. Everything looked normal. The furniture, the walls, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Normal, except for one thing. The mirror above the dresser was gone. In its place was a blank stretch of wall, smooth and unbroken. For a moment, I thought it was over, that I had somehow escaped, survived. But then I noticed something strange. My reflection in the window wasn't moving. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how wildly I waved my arms or shouted, it remained perfectly still, until it smiled.